before I forget. Okay. Gallery, I like the gallery view. Okay, awesome. Okay, so today's topic, so um I've been reading Get Out of Your Head, and it's been really good and helpful in a lot of ways just because I it gives you a spiritual view on things, and it also gives you like a scientific view, so you kind of get a little bit of both, which I like because I do think some things like that go hand in hand, and so it kind of gives you a different perspective on things. And it's basically talking about, I don't know if y'all have read the book Winning the War in Your Mind by Craig Rochelle. I haven't yet, but that's the next book on my list that I'm going to get. That's like a hardback copy. But this one's really refreshing because it's talking about like get out of your own head by just trusting in Jesus and like living every day for Jesus. And I think that a lot of us, we strive to do that. And sometimes it's way harder and it's way easier said than done. And so I don't want you to feel alone in that. And so this one is, I'm actually reading Craig Rochelle's Bible study, and it's the Winning the War in Your Mind. So it's not the book, but it's the Bible study. And this one is, I guess it doesn't have a title actually. So this one today, it says, our lives are always moving in the direction of our strongest thoughts. What we think shapes who we are. You might read that and think I'm being an overly dramatic preacher using hyperbole to get your attention, but this is no exaggeration. Our lives do follow the direction of our thoughts. The better we grasp the truth, the better equipped we'll be to change the trajectory of our lives. But don't take my word for it. Both the Bible and modern science provide evidence that this is true. So throughout this Bible plan, we'll unpack both scripture and what we've learned from scientific research. Here's a brief example of both. In Philippians 4:8-9, the Apostle Paul writes, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. In these three sentences, Paul moves from thought, think about such things, to action, put it into practice, to experience, the God of peace will be with you. Paul tells us that our thoughts shape our lives. In recent years, an entire discipline of modern psychology has developed called cognitive, I always get this word wrong, cognitive behavioral therapy. This breakthrough teaching reveals that many problems, from eating disorders to relational challenges, addictions, and even some forms of depression and anxiety, are rooted in the faulty and negative patterns of thinking. Treating those problems begins with changing that thinking. I didn't know about you, but when the Bible and modern psychology says the same thing, I want to know more. What science is demonstrating today is what God told us through Solomon almost 3,000 years ago. For as he thinks in his heart, so he is. So if both the Bible and modern science teach us that our lives are moving in the direction of our strongest thoughts, then we need to ask ourselves, do I like the direction that my thoughts are taking me? And that's the number one question that I kind of want you to ask yourself right now is, do you like the direction that your thoughts are taking you? For me, I would probably say half the time no, half the time yes. It's a constant battle, but that's why I work extra hard in the morning, extra hard in the evening, like extra hard to do personal development, just be my mom positive energy. And it says if your answer is no, then maybe it's time to change your thinking. Maybe it's time to decide to change your mind so God can change you. If you're skeptical, that's okay. Believe me, I get it. We've all tried unsuccessfully to change bad habits and force our runaway trains of thought back onto the right tracks. But this time you're not alone. You're also about to discover that God will team up with you to transform your thinking. With God's help, you can transform your mind. You can stop believing the lies that hold you back. You can end the vicious cycle of thoughts that are destructive to you and others. You can allow God to renew your mind by saturating you with his unchanging truth. And something that I wanted to point out that I feel like it's very obvious obvious at this point, but sometimes it takes you hearing it a billion times before you actually do it, that if you don't have a separate time for when you're doing spiritual development, I genuinely ask you, and I ask you to even tell your teams to do it. And I'm not just saying that it's going to transform your life in one day, and that's not like that isn't how it worked for me. I've been working on my faith very heavily for 6 years now, and it still grows every single day, but I'm a completely different person than I was before I started my faith. And one thing that Jenny Allen says in this Get Out of Your Head book is she says the battle of our minds is won as we focus on Jesus every single moment, every single hour, every single day. And so I know that sometimes we get in this cycle of, okay, so if I start off small, that's good. And I always tell you guys to start off small. Well, maybe your small is like only doing it once a week. I really advise you, for a better quality of life and for you to start reconstructing your mind and for you to start reinventing the wheel in your mind of what it constantly thinks, I'm actually asking you to sit here and reevaluate what you're doing. Do you spend too much time in the morning on your hair? If so, maybe devote 5 minutes away from that and 5 minutes in the Bible. 5 minutes listening to a devotional, reading a devotional. I tell you all about the devotionals that I have all the time. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have like 6 or 7 different books that I'll read out of. And so I never get bored. And then I have my Bible app. And so I use all those different tools. But with this Bible study, it's specifically telling you that like you can transform your mind, and that's the beauty of it, where there's no like magic pill, there's no anything that you can't do, but the biggest blessing with that is it's in your control. And I think that that's what something you need to hear, because sometimes people are like, I just can't change. I just can't change. I just can't change. And we talked a couple of weeks ago about how you're addicted to the negative cycles in your head. You're addicted to bad things happening to you. You don't even realize it. You're just addicted to it because it's the story you've told yourself over and over again. Well, you're addicted to telling yourself, I just don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. So you've settled in, instead of sitting here taking the action of just reading your Bible and doing the things daily and necessary. Some people I still talk to, and they're like, I'm struggling so bad mentally. And I'm like, what do you do to pour into yourself? And they're like, I know this is really bad to say, but nothing. And I'm like, at this point, if you're struggling so badly, that's the first step you really need to make in yourself, is just to ask God to release all those things from you. And my sticky note fell out of my book that I marked on this page. Where is it at? But there's this graphic in here. Oh, here it is. It says, when we think new thoughts, we physically alter our brains. When we think new thoughts, we make healthier neural connections. When we think new thoughts, we blaze new trails. When we think new thoughts, everything changes for us. So you realize with just one little change of one thought a day can alter everything else in your mind. And this is like scientifically, this is where she's kind of talking about like scientific facts and stuff. But I want you to like figure out, okay, do I like the way that my brain goes in the morning, or do I not? And that's the first thing that you can change. And then another thing, it gives you like a little pattern of things. And it says, when you feel an emotion, it says, when you feel an emotion, you have a choice right then to either give that emotion to Christ and give that emotion to Jesus, or you have that time to just sulk in it and to feel bad for yourself or whatever. So the next time you feel a negative emotion, or even if it's a positive one, if you're so joyful, I don't want you to be like, oh my gosh, I did this myself, whatever you're joyful at. I want you to be like, you know what, God, thank you so much for providing me with this joy. But say on the opposite end, say it's super negative. Say it's like really sad. Maybe you're experiencing a loss in your family. I don't know. It could be any different scenario. I want you to pray about that emotion and say, okay, God, whatever emotion this is, can you please just release it? I'll give it to you. And then you allow me to see what greatness you're doing in my life. Once you do that, it leads into thoughts. That's going to start changing your thought patterns. Then once you change your thought patterns, it's going to go into your actual behavior of what you do for that day. Then once you change that, it's going to go into your relationships. So obviously, we always know that we try to make an impact with people. If you're negative, you're making a negative impact on people. If you're positive, you're making a positive impact. So think about it, when your behavior, whatever you're behaving out that day, it's going to transport into other people's lives, and they're going to see that, and then they're going to feel their emotions as well with you. And then with that, it's the consequence of whatever it is. So it will be a good consequence if you decide to turn that emotion over to God and ask him, hey, how can I use this for good today? You're going to see a good outcome. You're going to see a great outcome. Whereas if you just handled it yourself, you might not see the best outcome. And I don't know if this makes sense to you guys, but it's literally like, that's what the chart looks like. I just like write in my own words of how I want to feel. This is a really good book. It was like $20 at Walmart for the hardback, or no, 17. But I'm still reading through it. And so basically it just talks about being intentional with your emotions. And that's something that I just really wanted to go over today, as far as just like letting you know that like, you can be really intentional with how you feel today. Sometimes it feels like a battle. I know for me, I let my emotions or my thoughts run the day sometimes. And sometimes I just have to sit there and just breathe for a second, take all like halt onto action and just say, okay, God, I need you in this moment. I need you in my life. I need you in this emotion that I'm feeling because I don't think that I can handle this today. I don't think that I'm going to do smart things if I keep feeling this way. I don't think I'm going to do this or whatever. And so I hand it over to him. And it's just literally winning the war in your mind. And I actually typed in winning the day on the Bible app, and then the winning the war in your mind popped up. And so just like Amber had said on the Zoom, like that little quote stuck to me because it was just like, oh my gosh, you win the day one by one. And so focus on winning the day today. Focus on just winning that emotion over today. And then we already know, like I had said before, 70% of your thoughts are from yesterday's thoughts. And so it's going to carry over into the next day. And guess what? It's going to constantly build, and it's going to allow you to be more positive. It's going to allow you to be more impactful, and it's going to allow you to build that trust and like relationship with God, which should always be an importance to you. So if you haven't started putting God first in your life or just in your daily routine, I really ask you to do that. Like, I'm not asking you in a sense of like, you're going to go to hell if you don't, it's not coming from a place of that. I'm on the other side of letting you know the quality of life that you have when you allow God into your life is like, it's so abundant filled that I wake up and I'm just like, I cannot believe this is my life that I get to live. I'm so abundantly blessed. Like, let me bless someone today. And that's why I love doing these prayer exams, is because I hope that my words can bless someone for the day, because maybe you aren't in that situation where you're like, I'm so blessed. Maybe you're in a situation where you don't love your life. I was there at one point, and I never want someone to feel hopeless. I never want someone to feel not powerful or anything like that. And when I started letting God in my life, it's just, I could go on and on about my testimony. There's like a billion other testimonies that I could give you, but just at the same time, like I don't know. I pray over our team daily, every single time, on the Zoom, off the Zoom. I pray that our team will allow God to like enter into their hearts, because again, it's just made such an impact in my life. So if you've been like, if you're like, you know what, I've let him in a little bit, but you haven't fully just like released it and just been like, all right, God, come on into my life. I really ask you to do that today and just see what happens. Worst case scenario, he changes your heart, which is what we want anyways, right? He changes your perspective. We don't like change as humans sometimes. Bless you, Morgan. We don't like change sometimes as humans, but at the end of the day, it's always good for our heart. It's always just good for us. So I don't know. I just wanted to go over that today, because I think just laying the groundwork of letting you know, like, you can win the war in your mind. You can win the things for the day. You can win the day, and you can also pray about it and let God into your life, and that's going to make a huge difference. It's pretty basic. I feel like people should know this by now, but also at the same time, maybe you don't. Maybe you did need to hear this today. And so even if people are watching this on YouTube, like, maybe this is what starts their faith. I have absolutely no clue, but I really hope this helps. And if you are someone who struggles mentally, and wants like something mentally to help, but also spiritually, Get Out of Your Head is actually really good. I didn't think that it was going to be so spiritual like it was. I just kind of had heard about it. And then I picked it up and I was like, oh, this is like a spiritual book too. So it's really good. Really recommend y'all getting the hardback copy, because there's like graphs in there, and she shows you specifically on like how your mind works and stuff like that. And so I don't know, I'm a writer though. I like to literally write all over my pages. So would not be able to give this book to someone because I've already wrote all over it. So hopefully that helps, but y'all can go ahead and drop your